Conversations are really important, and oftentimes we hear that we need to have them, but we don't necessarily know how to have them. Oftentimes I've noticed that when people come into these conversations, they're looking for a fact-finding mission and not necessarily to hear one person's experience within a system. There are good ways and bad ways to start this conversation. Oftentimes I hear phrases like, well, this person was a criminal, well, this person shouldn't have been out all night, or worse, yes, police violence is bad, but black on black crime accounts for most of the deaths in the African American community. All of these are ways to technically start a conversation, but you're more so initiating a debate. And in that, ideas get lost and it turns into a shouting match 9 times out of 10, and no real resolution comes from it. But there are good ways to start the conversation. When you do have these conversations, you're more so asking for this person's experience within the system. And only from asking these questions and truly trying to learn about how other people are experiencing the same things that you are experiencing is when you can start to notice that there are things that can be changed, that should be changed. And then you can work together as a community to push legislation forward to ensure that these changes come to fruition. A way that I've had this play out both positively and negatively at the same time was at Vanderbilt. It is my first year and I'm on campus at a Vandy van, which is our bus system, talking with my friend Jacob Steelan, who's on the football team, and 2 other Vandy students. VUPD pulls up and asks to see our IDs. So we all stand up and we all say why. It's me, Jacob, and 2 other Vandy students. They're both girls. So we all say why. And they say, well, not y'all, but you, and points to me. I'm the only black person there. So I instantly double down and say, well, why? We're notified that there's been reports of TSU students, Tennessee State University, which was very close to Vandy, students being on campus. And that's a no-no, apparently. They thought me, football player, also decked out in all Vanderbilt attire, was a TSU student. So I instantly get upset and say, no, I'm not, and that's fine. And he says, well, I still need to see your ID. And I said, well, that's unnecessary. The 3 other people all there also vouched for me, but I'm still being questioned. So I go to pull out my wallet and I'm hesitant. And Jacob stands up and snaps and goes off on this police officer for forcing me to have to pull out my ID after everyone has vouched for me. And I've already said that I wasn't. After checking my ID and come back, and one of the girls there says, wow, that's really messed up, Steven. Whoever they're looking for, they're nothing like you, because you're a good guy. And I say, excuse me? And she's like, yeah. And that is another thing that I often hear, that if the people that you see, that we've all seen on TV who've lost their lives, if they were more like me, right? Or like anyone else on the team, someone who's made the most of their opportunities, then they wouldn't be where they are today. And that's not fair. That leads to a bunch of negative emotions, especially to the person you said them to. That is another conversation to have. But also in that moment, Jacob realized that I didn't feel comfortable and just straight up asked, well, Steven, they don't know why you responded like that. Maybe you should tell them why. So then in that moment, I went into how this was not the first time where I was asked specifically and singled out to show identification, even after multiple people have vouched for me because of my skin color. And so going into details about this happening in middle and high school led to them now understanding that, oh, this wasn't just a one-off incident or something like that. This is a problem, and that you've had to experience it multiple times, so it's understandable why you got upset. And so it was in that moment where the conversation needed to happen, but the first way it was brought up kind of made me think and hesitate and was about to send me on a different tangent, where when Jacob asked me to just explain why I responded the way I responded and talk about my experiences, especially with police and having to be asked for identification, that led to the other 2 people gaining a perspective. And from that moment, they learned a little bit more about me, and they were able to take that experience and then move forward with it.